And just like that, things have changed a little bit. So there's my bike.
This episode of Amazing Life brought to you by Pandora's European Motorsports. Get out of the box. Also in part by weather had been calling for rain for days, but excited to get with others in the Tellico Plains region, we were going anyway, regardless of the weather. It rained hard the majority of the 2.5-hour ride to Tellico Plains. The camp was saturated with pools of water just about everywhere. Finding a dry place was impossible, but I was able to find a location that was slightly raised and worked well for the additional rain that we knew was coming. I was grateful to have this Hilleberg tent this weekend. It gave me ample room to place my wet gear and still have my sleeping area clean and dry. I tend to believe in the buy once, cry once theory on most of my gear, and this tent is no exception. It's worth it if you camp often. It's fast to set up and will withstand just about any weather it goes up against. This 3-man tent comes in right around 9.8 pounds, not but a few ounces more than my previous Snugpak tent. Now the whole tent with integrated ground cloth fits in a 20-liter Moscow bag.
Any tent can do well in good weather. It's when you find yourself in bad weather, whether it's really, really cold, snow, torrential rain, even hail. This brand tent has been through just about everything. They make them for expeditions to Everest and different places like that, and you can really tell it in the quality of the fabrics and the zippers and the materials that they use in this. And so it's just bulletproof, and it really makes coming to an event like this that you know there's going to be a lot of bad weather a little more palatable, because you know you're going to stay dry. There are options for you to stay organized, and it just really helps a lot.
What do you think? You think this qualifies for hard rain?
It continued to rain into the night, but by morning it had stopped and I headed up to the office for breakfast. Good morning. Breakfast was fantastic as usual, cooked with fresh eggs made by the numerous chickens there on the property. After breakfast, we waited a bit for the fog to clear, and all prepared for a great day of riding. At this point, I was still in the misguided belief that it would just be another riding weekend. Long story short, this video is missing a primary factor, actually the primary camera. So bear with me as I try to tell this story without the very new Insta360 that had most of my footage. we did run into a tree down, which is common after this much rain. In my Jeep, I would have used a chainsaw, but on the bikes, we typically use a different approach. After that, we headed toward what we affectionately call the alien landing pad. It was actually a concrete batching plant used back in the 30s. This flue line access point is part of the piping system that works for the hydroelectric energy production for that region. This once industrious plant provided needed concrete for local dams being built in the area, particularly the Appalachian Dam. It's amazing to me to imagine how the landscape must have looked back then and how it has completely been reclaimed by nature now. It's now a must-see when dual sport riding in the area. From there, we were off to explore what is known as Leaky Pike. This pipe is part of a massive tunnel system that diverts water from the dam, goes through the landscape, and arrives at the power station downstream, creating energy along the way. It's a favorite stop for dual sport and 4x4s alike. You may guess how it got its name. Rain was forecast the next day, but it appeared we could get a morning ride in before the bottom fell out. Now, by the time we reached the top of the mountain, we discovered rain was coming fast. We headed down and I was in the lead and all was going well, and then this happened. I wasn't hurting yet as the adrenaline was pretty strong, but I knew I'd feel it later.
One step. No. It doesn't really look injured, to be honest. I'm okay. The problem is just the weather. So it's getting to the point where it's really bad weather. And I've called a wrecker. I've called with the inReach device. I was able to call a couple of friends to have them call a wrecker to this position. So now we're just waiting to hear back on the inReach to see whether they got the message or not. They're heading back just in case the message because the problem is where I sent the messages, they have spotty service as well, so they'd only get messages whenever. So we have no guarantee that the place that I sent help to actually got the message, even though I know it went out on my end. So Everett and Jimmy went back. They're going to get service. They're going to contact, they're going to contact Scott first to see if he got the message, because I don't want two wreckers coming out here. And if they didn't get it, then they're going to call a wrecker service that has a boom pole so that hopefully we can get this thing out without damaging it. Because right now, it's really not injured. because of all the armor I got on it. But if you notice, look at the bike. It's in a pretty precarious spot. And I don't know how stable this is, especially with all the mud starting to slide. And so that might be, this is the difference in a minor injury and a total if we don't secure this thing. So what we're gonna try to do is pull this grapevine down and then wrap it around this other tree to where we can somewhat secure it in hopes that it might help. And it's all we can do because we don't have rope.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit looser. Okay. That's some loose.
After not hearing back for a while and being unable to get messages to send reliably due to the weather, I borrowed Verla's bike to ride up the mountain in hopes of getting more reliable messages out.
Been sitting under this rock, trying to stay out of the rain while we wait for the tow truck to drag this bike, not mine, back up over the hill. They took mine and went for help. So, hours have passed. Thank God I found these nuts in my coat from like probably 4 rides ago, maybe 2 years, a year, I don't know. They was in a side pocket I didn't know I had, so I'm fixing to eat them. I think I might make it.
After a great deal of deliberation, we developed a plan and worked to secure the bike and lift it out. The goal was to drag it as little as possible.
That's good, that's good.
drive it out.
Fuel spilled all over the tank, and I was certain oil had filled the air intake. Now, given it was upside down for so long, we really didn't know how much would be in there. After cleaning that up, we replaced the cover, and it was time to crank it and see where we stood. It cranked without a hitch. No codes, no grumbling, not even any smoke. It was time to ride it back.
Can't kill them. Because we dried it out. All right.
All right, final statements. I'm about to turn this off. He's crazy.
He's crazy.
Are you ready to...
Now, still a little shaken and pretty weary, I didn't record anything getting back. But after arriving, however, we were met with food in the smoker and being prepared in the boiler. A feast was upon us, and we were ready for it. Tom smoked 6 chickens, Verla brought a ton of fresh shrimp from Pensacola, and Scott supplied the rest of the preps to have a fantastic shrimp boil. We had a great time sharing the stories of the day and being thankful for another ride that ended with no injuries. The story wasn't over though. The brand new Insta360 was still missing, and I was committed to finding it. I'd already notified Holly of what had happened, but not in detail, and slowly let her in on the full scoop. When realizing the camera was lost, she packed up and headed my way, bringing much needed climbing gear for me to do a more complete search of the area. Holly arrived on Monday, and we took off on a new quest to find the camera as well as the missing footage of the weekend. All the rain had caused some damage to the road, including a pretty significant washout that was sure to worsen with time. Wayne, the owner of the best campground in the area in my opinion, was kind enough to go with me on Sunday searching for a few hours in the rain, but without a long rope, it was difficult to navigate some of the area, so I felt it was possible that I missed it. Soon I realized that I would have to disclose the actual location without prejudice to Holly, and I decided to start off this way. It actually looks worse than it is, okay? So we were coming around, and as you can see, like it's a switchback curve, so it's an S curve coming this way, then it goes this way, and then goes on. Well, the faster you go, the more you kind of straighten up the curves, and so I was coming through here, and it's rained a lot since then, so you don't really see anything, but this is pretty hard pack. This looks like hard pack. It's not, it's just mud underneath. And all the leaves are gone now, but there were leaves covering all this, so I couldn't really tell. And cut it too far. And right up here, oh, you can't, well, that's me doing that. And then right here is when the front wheel slid out. And then it slid all the way down. And then it flipped around and then went over, and the bike landed upside down right there. And I ended up down there.
Hang on. You ended up where?
Down there.
Ah.
And so the 360 ended up somewhere else.
Somewhere out here. And where was the 360?
It was on my helmet.
Okay. And so it just broke off and flew.
After the lame explanation attempting to downplay and not focusing on what could have happened, it was time to get into action to see if the new camera could be retrieved. Wayne and I had already searched pretty well in all the normal areas closer to the drop area. So this plan was to do the what-if scenarios that could have caused the camera to be launched. The first rope was a climbing rope and not really designed for rappelling, but it was longer than my rappelling rope, so I started with it. All right, here we go.
Good luck.
I'm gonna have you give me that metal detector before I get too far. I later switched ropes and engaged the metal detector I borrowed from Wayne in hopes it got buried under leaves during the rain. Unfortunately, even after an exhaustive search of the mountainside and finding a lot of old cans, we were unable to find the camera. But as always, it was an adventure of its own. Sometimes things don't go the way you want, but if there were no risk of failure, would it really make the good times so satisfying? Probably not. Life has risks. That's what makes the rewards so spectacular. If I have one thing to share, it's to live life as though we only get one, because we do. Might as well make it amazing. Until next time, I'm David Mays, and this is Our Amazing Life.